Call to order the Arvada City Council meeting, this first meeting in December, December 3rd, 2018. Call upon Councilmember Dot Miller.
Would you please join me in a moment of silent reflection? Thank you. And it looks like we've got some Boy Scouts in the audience with us today. Would you mind coming down here and helping me with the Pledge of Allegiance? Come on down and we'll do the pledge together. How's that?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well done, Scouts, but before you go sit down, I want you to come up to this microphone, give us your name, what troop you're in, and what badge you're working on, if you're working on a badge.
My name is Dylan Rosenbeck with Troop 231, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
Very good.
My name is Adrian Crawford, and I'm in Troop 231, and I'm working on citizenship. Citizenship in the community.
Very good.
Hi, my name is Trayvon Gonzalez. I'm in Troop 231, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
I am AJ. I am with Boy Scout Troop 231, and we are doing the citizenship in the community.
My name is Xander. I'm a Troop 231, and we're working on citizenship in the community.
Henry Prokop, Troop 231, citizenship in the community.
I'm Stephen St. Peter with Troop 231, and I'm working on citizenship in the community.
Well, thank you all for being here and helping us lead in the pledge today. Kristen Rush, if you'll call roll. Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Marriott.
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer.
Here.
Councilmember Ford.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Councilmember McGough.
Here.
Councilmember Miller.
Here.
Next, we have our approval of the minutes for November 19th, 2018. Any changes or corrections? Seeing none, they will stand approved as presented. Next, we have recognitions and communications. I'll call upon Councilmember David Jones.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, it's my distinct honor and privilege to be able to present the proclamation for the Bill of Rights. On December 15th, it is designated as Bill of Rights Day. This designation commemorates the ratification of the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution on December 15th, 1791. The Bill of Rights enshrines many of our most fundamental liberties and unalienable rights. So I'm going to read a proclamation here that's been signed by the mayor and all members of City Council. Whereas the first 10 amendments of the Constitution to the Constitution of the United States of America, known as the Bill of Rights, were ratified on December 15th, 1791. And whereas December 15th, 2018 marks the 227th anniversary of that ratification. And whereas the Bill of Rights is the foundation of American liberty, securing our most fundamental rights, including freedom of speech, press, religion, and assembly. And whereas it is fitting and proper to officially commemorate the Bill of Rights with a special day, honoring the rights it enshrines and the sacrifices made to create and preserve these rights. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the mayor and the City Council of the City of Arvada, Colorado, hereby recognize December 15th, 2018 as Bill of Rights Day, and call upon everyone to take this opportunity to reflect on this treasured document, read, study, and learn its contents, and then discuss these rights with family, friends, co-workers, and others in their networks. And again, that's signed by the mayor and all members of City Council, dated today, December 3rd, 2018. Before I present this to members of the American Legion Post 161, I'd like to turn some time over to our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. The original U.S. Constitution, as it was proposed in 1787 in Philadelphia and was ratified by the states, originally contained very few individual right guarantees, as the framers of the document were primarily focused on establishing the organization of systems for an effective federal government. One of the many points of contention between the Federalists, who advocated a strong national government, and the Anti-Federalists, who wanted power to remain with the state and local governments, was the Constitution's lack of a Bill of Rights that would place specific limits on government power. The Federalists argued that the Constitution did not need a Bill of Rights because the people in the states kept any power not specifically given to the federal government. Anti-Federalists, on the other hand, argued that a Bill of Rights was necessary to spell out and to safeguard individual liberty. The Bill of Rights was strongly influenced by the Virginia Declaration of Rights written by George Mason. By the fall of 1788, James Mason believed that a Declaration of Rights should be added to the Constitution. Today, the Bill of Rights is a part of the very fabric of our society, in that these first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution provide certain rights and freedoms that safeguard against unlawful government regulation. By way of example, the First Amendment rights to peaceably assemble. Situations have occurred over time, even in Arvada, where groups wish to protest something, and then they approach the city and they ask, well, where can we actually assemble? And we, instead of just simply saying, no, you can't do that, we figure out where they can do it and where they're safe. And from time to time, we've used the police department to protect their ability to do that. That's the First Amendment. The Second Amendment, there's a right to have and carry a weapon, right? And that happens all the time. That's a huge issue now, especially on a federal level. Arguments about with the various shootings that we have, whether people should, have weapons and whether they should be able to carry them. Certainly, the police department is involved on a daily basis with the rights that people have against an unreasonable search and seizure to protect personal privacy. And so there's many, many cases across this country, not in Arvada, but across this country, where the actions of police officers have been challenged in the courts, trying to protect that Fourth Amendment right. The Fifth Amendment includes the obligation that if government is going to take private property, you may not do so without just compensation. And of course, we follow those specific obligations whenever we enter into negotiations to buy someone's property. They deserve due process, and we must pay them just compensation. That happens even today. The judge is here tonight. Judge Cook is here, and every day he is faced with issues relating to getting the defendant to trial in a timely fashion. The right to a jury trial. If a defendant wishes to have a jury trial, the judge, upon the payment of a particular fee, if one can afford the fee, affords defendants that right. The right to have an attorney represent you, or to have an attorney appointed to represent you, Judge Cook deals with that on a daily basis. And so you can see from these examples that the Bill of Rights is although it was essentially created back in the late 1700s, it still is alive and breathing today. And every day at the City of Arvada, we have to acknowledge what those rights are and make sure that we are not impinging on those personal rights. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Daly. And if it weren't for our military and those who defend our rights and defend our Constitution, we may not have these rights. And so for that, we're grateful that members of the American Legion Post 161 are here to accept this proclamation. And we'd invite you to say anything that you'd like, but I'll bring it down and present it to you.
On behalf of the American Legion Post 161, I thank the mayor and the city council for this opportunity to come in and receive this award. We at the American Legion believe in our Constitution and all the rights that we have, and all the veterans who have fought and are still fighting to preserve our rights as citizens of the United States that we have today. So on behalf of the American Legion, again, thank you. And we are trying, we're trying now to get out to the schools, more of the schools, at some of the high schools and junior highs, to be able to put out little booklets to them about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Clint here, he's been a big supporter of this, and he's been helping me out a lot. So, Clint.
Gives me a pleasure to be in front of you, Mayor Williams and Council. Some of the other things that we do at the Legion, we support the Boy Scouts. They meet at our facility every week, every month, every week. And we go to the, we've been going to the, like Lawrence Elementary, and we do a flag raising ceremony with them, show them the proper way to fold a flag and what to do with the flag if it drops and gets dirty or if it gets torn, you know, things like that. How to raise the flag, and if it's at half mast, to go all the way to the top and then back down. And the same thing when you bring the flag down from half mast, you go to the top and all the way down. Just things like that that really, the kids, they're so interested in when we go to them and show them this. It's just amazing and very rewarding for us, actually, to watch these kids and how enthused they are. And it's so important that we show these kids what our flag stands for. And I'm just pleased that you guys are supporting this program for our schools. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We really appreciate you.
One other thing I would like to say, I'm looking forward to see you there at the roundtable breakfast this Friday. Anybody would like to come? I know I see a lot of you there all the time, so it's very informative.
Do you have a special guest speaking?
We do have a guest speaker each roundtable.
Did I see it might be Judge Cook?
He was there.
If I may, I was there last month. I think they've had enough, but I've been in touch to come up with somebody who will cover Friday for them. And I encourage everyone to attend. It's wonderful.
Right. Good.
Judge Cook did a great job there, let me tell you that.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Now, before I finish, Mayor, I'd like to invite up members from the Wheat Ridge Optimist Club. They have a few things to say, and give them some time here.
In honor and recognition of what you have just proclaimed, Wheat Ridge Optimist Club would like to share with you that we are giving 200 of these constitutional books, U.S. Constitution books, to Arvada High School, and another 50 of them to the Arvada K through 8. And thank you for proclaiming this. We appreciate it, and we're going to support you and carry this through to the high schools, just as the American Legion does. Thank you.
Yes.
Sure.
Yep.
Thank you very much for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Andy.
Now, I want to say a word, only a word. I can say it from here, I can say it from...
No, you go to the podium if you would.
That way the people at home can hear you.
Do you want me to tell my name? It's
Please.
Andy McKeon. I happen to live in Lakewood, but that's okay. Our mayor, Adam Paul, did the same thing at the city council meeting in
Right.
Lakewood. We're doing this statewide in Colorado, so I really thank the mayor and the city council for doing this. The main thing we're focusing on is getting families to sit with your children. Anyone that has children or grandchildren, sit with them and go over the Bill of Rights. Go over it, sit with them, talk to them, read it, discuss it, and discuss it so they can have a deeper understanding, like our attorney, the city attorney was saying. The goal of this is to really know and understand and appreciate what we have in America with our Bill of Rights, because it's precious. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Africa, and every one of my friends begged me to bring them to America. We see what's happening from the people from Central America. It isn't just economic opportunity. They want to come here for freedom, because that's what these wonderful veterans of the American Legion have done, so that we can sit here peaceably and do this, the work of the people. So I hope every one of you can go and talk to some students. I'm challenging you, every one of you. If you don't want to do that, at least talk to some kids. And tell them, hey, city council and public service is good. Elected representatives are being lambasted a lot in the media. I don't like it. I've been working on this for 22 years. And if we're going to have what we have here, a representative republic, people have to have respect and honor of representatives. I thank you for your service. I really appreciate what you're doing. This is America. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This discussion tonight is making me feel very old. 27 years ago, I served on the Bar Association Committee for the 200th anniversary of the Bill of Rights. So I must be getting old. Okay, with that, we have some people signed up for public comment. I'll lead off with our folks from the Arvada Festivals Commission. We have Gretchen Sherlock and Regan Robertson.
Mayor Williams and members of City Council, I am Gretchen Sherlock. I'm the 2018 chair of Arvada Festivals Commission, and I brought a friend.
Hi, good evening. I'm Reagan Robertson, and I'm the 2019 chair, so looking forward to next year.
So we come today to give you a end-of-year update on what we've done in 2018. As you know, we've sent our committee here, our commission here before every festival to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. That started the year with a brand new festival called Winterfest, which really celebrated the culture of our dynamic community. And we held it outside in February, and there was snow everywhere. It was wonderful, a great way to get the community out in the winter months, because so many of our festivals are held during those summer months. We thought, let's change it up a little bit, and we had a great turnout, so much that we're really building on that for 2019. In March, we continued a long-standing tradition with high tea, where we celebrate the elderly of our community. Those 90 and plus, we invite to tea, and this year Regan did an amazing job with a Frank Sinatra-style type event that was enjoyed by all. Again, this will continue in 2019. Followed by that, we had our Kite Festival, which is such a unique and wonderful, very Arvada event. It's so unique to us, and there's something just so wonderful about that it is always the most well-attended event, whether there is 90-mile-an-hour winds, too much to actually fly kites, or bouncy houses maybe are flying across the field. The city still comes out to enjoy that. We again did Trails Day, which is actually the National Trails Day. 2019, we will not be doing Trails Day, but we'll rework something potentially in future years to fill in that June time space. 4th of July, we maintained just the fireworks festival, and felt that in 2019, while we don't want to have a full-on festival with booths and vendors and activities for families, what we want to do is make this a sponsorship event to really recognize our annual sponsors. And so we'll be having a very small, informal place for our annual sponsors to enjoy the city fireworks. We had the 4th year of Arvada on Tap, another great festival, which was reworked this year to exclude the Kansas City Barbecue Society, but still integrate a really fun barbecue component with this year's event. After that, we had our VADA Days, which celebrated our pioneering heritage. And while we had low attendance, we're looking at how we may transform that in 2019. And we just finished out the year with Cheers for the Holidays, which was held at the brand new Hilton Garden Inn and was the best event yet. So I want to thank you for your support of our VADA Festivals Commission, and I'm really excited for what 2019 is going to bring.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it's always great to see all of you when you guys come to all of our festivals, one or two of those. So we look forward to seeing you guys next year.
Thank you.
Well, we want to thank the Festivals Commission. You all do such a tremendous job, and you bring smiles to our faces with the great energy that you all bring to the various programs and festivals. And when we dreamed up this idea of a Festivals Commission a few years ago, we never knew that it was going to take off and be as successful as it has. And you have, year after year, just continued to represent what's best about Arvada. So thank you and all the other commission members. And I know that some of you will be seeing you very shortly. So looking forward to it. Next, I'll call on Brett Vernon. Good evening, Mr. Vernon. Good to see you again.
Good evening. Good to see you all. Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Brett Vernon. I'm a resident of the Layton Rock community. I'm also a member of the Jefferson Parkway Advisory Committee, formed roughly a year ago to provide public input to the Parkway Board regarding what's construction of the Parkway. I'm before you today as a private citizen to provide you a little bit of background into some of the advisory committee recommendations. 15 recommendations were received unanimous support at the advisory committee, and those were verbally communicated to the board on November 15th. 3 of those recommendations are regarding the construction and operation of the parkway as it goes through the Layton Rock neighborhood. I'm requesting that you, as members of the City Council, review those recommendations and encourage the Parkway Board to encourage those into the RFP that goes out roughly the middle of this month. In preparation for my service on the Parkway Committee, I drove the entire Beltway to see how other residential neighborhoods were impacted by the highway, how close those residences were to the Parkway, and using a laser rangefinder, I discovered that very few communities actually border the highway, and not a single community is actually bisected by the Beltway as it goes around Denver. The closest community to the Beltway is the Anthem community in Broomfield. Those homes are roughly about 190 yards away from the Parkway. The closest homes are 115 yards away from the Parkway. Using a cross-section of the road provided by the authority, I went out to the Parkway as it transitioned Layton Rock and determined that the homes would be 65 yards away from the edge of the roadway as it transitions through Layton Rock. Not to the back fence, but to the back windows of those homes as it goes through the community. So no community in the Denver area is being asked to bear more for the Beltway than the Layton Rock community. Now, I get it. I work in the tech center. I drive freeways every day. I understand the needs for our roads, and I'm not asking you to not build it. I'm not asking you to change the route. I am asking that you carefully consider the impacts of the Parkway on the residents of the city of Arvada as it goes through Layton Rock. We came up with 3 key points that we hope that the board will consider. One is creative sound and light mitigation as it goes through the town of Layton Rock. Not just sound walls, not just berms, but something creative. There's more creative solutions out there. I think working together we can find them. We also think that measures should be taken to avoid dividing the community. This road will go right through the middle of Layton Rock, and this is a community that organically produced 15 events last year through their social committee that attracted 5,200 residents. I don't know how that compares to other fairs within the city, but it's a pretty good size for 1,500 homes. It's a pretty diverse and engaged community. The third recommendation that we made is that we should be looking into an access road slabed next to the highway that would give the residents of Layton Rock access out of the community to the north. Currently, there's only one way out of the community. Recent events have shown us that we need to have a safe evacuation plan for this community. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Vernon, and thank you for your service on the advisory committee. Next, now on, maybe with a little bit of a similar discussion, Mr. Bill Ray.
Somebody forgot their phone there.
Uh-oh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I just wanted to take this opportunity to briefly apprise the council on the status and next steps of the Jefferson Parkway. As certainly Chairman Jones and Mr. Mayor, yourself as a board member, know that on this Thursday, we'll be receiving our responses on our request for qualifications that we had put out on the streets on the 7th of September. We look forward to a quite robust response, although we'll never really know until 4 o'clock Thursday comes. Presuming that there is a response, the evaluation team, the project procurement team, will be spending the next 2 weeks going through and evaluating each one of those proposals that are received, with the idea that I will be recommending a short list of up to 3 firms to move forward in the request for proposal process by December 20th of this year. At that point, we would finish the development of the request for proposal, which we hope to have out at either the end of February or the first part of March. And at that point, the 3 proposers will go to work. We'll turn in their responses, late into the fall. We will evaluate those, hopefully come up with a preferred provider, and be at commercial close about a year from today, if not sooner. Financial close would follow, and construction would begin in the year 2020. That's really just a short progress report. Certainly would be happy to answer any questions that the council may have. Otherwise, I'll say thank you very much for your time.
Mr. Ray, I would indicate we did get these recommendations from the advisory group, well thought out, a lot of discussion. Can you tell us what's going to happen with those recommendations?
The actual hard copy, the final document I've just received today, and at that point we will go through and we'll provide to the authority board a point-by-point response, recommendation, or action as a result of each one of those recommendations.
Okay, and then we'll obviously want to share that with the full council.
Absolutely.
Very good. Mr. McGough.
Yes, I have a question, Mr. Ray, just concerning the request for qualification documents and then the request for proposal. Will those be funded by the companies who will be submitting those documents, or will the Parkway Authority be helping to finance the development of those documents?
The development of those documents are the responsibility of the authority.
Okay.
And it was our cost and burden to bear in creation of the RFQ documents, the request for qualifications documents. I already have teams that are busily at work providing the technical specifications, the plan of finance requirements, the engineering and construction oversight. The request for proposal will be a very, very complete and comprehensive document. I anticipate that each one of the proposers will probably have to expend something north of $5 million apiece in order just to respond to that.
Will the authority then be helping with the financing of the request for qualifications too, or just for the request for proposals?
We have already taken on the cost. The RFQ went out in September. Those were the authority's costs. Okay. The RFP process is also our burden to bear.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
The encouraging thing that we've been hearing as the Parkway Authority is that they're truly, because of the interest in this, we're cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to recoup costs for this process, including potentially the recovery of costs for land acquisition and Mr. Ray's time in terms of the time he has spent through the city and other folks who have put a lot of time. All 3 entities have kept track of what they've put into the project thus far, and we're although at one point we probably thought it was a pipe dream, but because of the economics and because of the demand, we're cautiously optimistic that the bidders will actually factor in repayment to the three entities, which is Jefferson County, City and County of Broomfield, and Arvada, our hard costs that have been incurred over the years on this. So, Mr. Pfeiffer?
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't push the button earlier. Bill, are you going to our other partner groups and kind of share this update as well?
I have a meeting scheduled with I met with Commissioner Ty with the county commissioners this morning, and I'm scheduled to have a meeting with the Broomfield City Council next week.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Very good, Mr. Ray.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck on the, I'm hoping they come in frequently, or with many. Okay, we have a few items on the consent agenda. The first few are for employment agreements with our relief municipal judges. First one's a resolution renewing the employment agreement with Michael Matassa. Second one's the resolution renewing the employment agreement with Miller Leonard. The third one's a resolution renewing the employment agreement with Kristen Wheeler. The next one is a renewal of the employment agreement with Ralph Toronto, and those are all for positions as relief municipal judges. Next item on the consent agenda is a resolution authorizing an amendment to an intergovernmental agreement between the Jefferson Parkway Public Highway Authority and the City of Arvada for the secondment of the Arvada employee, Bill Ray, to the Jefferson Parkway Public Highway Authority. Final item on the consent agenda is a resolution authorizing change order number 2 to a construction contract between Arvada and Concrete Express for the Leiden Road Street improvements from Quaker Street to Orion Way in the amount of approximately $120,000. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent? Mr. Pfeiffer.
Yeah, I move that consent items R18-126 through R18-131 be approved.
For the scouts in the room, what we do is we have some routine items that we put on the consent agenda. We indicate what they are, and then we vote on them, and those have passed 7-0. Next, we have a couple of resolutions. First is a resolution authorizing a wireless communications facilities master license agreement between the City of Arvada and Zayo Group, LLC, for the purpose of locating small cell facilities in the public right-of-way. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this resolution before you tonight would approve the master license agreement. I would like to make a couple of comments and then invite Ken Fellman, who worked with us as a consultant, to make a few remarks. Also working on this project was Linda Hoover in our Community and Economic Development Department. This agreement represents what we believe are the best practices in terms of locating small cell sites within our community. The master license agreement allows for considerations of things along the lines of community aesthetics, where the locations, where the sites would actually go, which would be first priority on third-party infrastructure like XL streetlights. Second priority would be on a new pole going up, and then a third priority, if at all, if necessary, would be on city infrastructure. We've talked to the council in the past about the fact that there's excuse me, FCC regulations associated with this process that have some requirements that are part of the process. This was something that our staff and Mr. Fellman had to work through in terms of developing the master license agreement, and I think they did a very fine job. And with that, I'll go ahead and invite Ken to make a few brief remarks.
Good evening, Mr. Fellman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Devon, operable word being brief. This agreement grew out of a model agreement that the Colorado Communications and Utilities Alliance put together. That's an organization of local governments that work on telecom issues. Arvada is, and for a long time has been an active member of that. It has given the city a model agreement, which I know you were briefed on in a study session, so you are somewhat familiar with the background on this. A framework for dealing with these small cell facilities in the rights of way. Companies may want to do things a little bit different. They always do, but generally under federal law, we're required to treat everyone in a competitively neutral and non-discriminatory manner, so that while we might make minor changes from company to company, we try to stay the same on the substance of the key issues. Because you've been briefed on this agreement before, I'm not going to get into any of the details unless you have any questions about it. The one additional comment I would make before I turn it back to you is to let you know that when we started this process, the FCC had an action pending that has now turned into an actual issuance of new rules, not very favorable rules for local governments. They're rules that further preempt local control over rights-of-way, local control over government property, charges that local governments can impose for simple things like permit fees, because the FCC in Washington, D.C. knows better as to what the city of Arvada's costs are in administering a permit process. And that order, as you might expect, is being challenged. So there's currently a court case in federal court where multiple local governments from around the country are challenging it, all of which is to say that depending upon how it turns out, because of the court case, and depending upon how this really starts to work out once we start seeing deployment, these are new technologies, we haven't dealt with it before, so as good as this license agreement is, and we think it's pretty good, once we get involved in these and start seeing deployment, just like with our code, we're going to come up with some things that can be tweaked to make it better. So hope you don't get sick of me, because I'll probably be back here sometime in the next year with ways to improve what we have now. So with that, I will zip it and see if you have any questions.
Open it up for council questions or action. Mr. Pfeiffer, you're first.
I have a question. I'll make the motion if there's not any other questions. On this one question I did have on this proposal was Zayo. Are they doing multiple carriers in their their deployment? Are they just Sprint's the first one, or do you know? I couldn't find that for some reason.
I don't know if we know for sure, but this agreement pertains just to Sprint. Linda, do you know?
Or is it Zayo and Sprint's just one of their customers?
And Sprint is one of their customers. I don't know of any other customer that they've talked about.
Well, I think the question is are they going to be co-locating inside the pole? I'm just wondering if we're going to minimize the pole everywhere.
We have a representative here if council would like to hear directly from Zayo. The way this agreement is structured, this is the master agreement that covers basically authorization to use the rights of way for these things. It requires an individual site agreement for each individual site that will be based upon design criteria that the companies are working out with staff. My guess is that some may be co-locations, some may be single company sites based on the size.
Well, those are done by administrative process versus coming to see us, those individual sites.
Excuse me?
The only time we're going to see this is at the master service level, right?
Is that right?
The individual sites will be administratively taken care of.
Correct. They will be through the permit process.
But we will notify council.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the first one coming through. Just wanted to understand. Are you the Zayo rep? So are you planning to co-locate multiple carriers in your poles?
And if you could state your name for the record.
I'm Jason Jorgensen, Vice President of Network Deployment at Zayo for our region, Arvada citizen for 19 years. Small cells, very new technology, right on the cutting edge. We are a neutral carrier in this process. We are not one of the wireless carriers. We're an infrastructure company.
Right.
Fiber is really our bread and butter business. This is where our business is expanded into. We are a neutral player. We want to encourage co-location on these sites. Our first business is with Sprint, and we are discreetly solving for Sprint right now with some contemplation towards co-location. We want to be able to co-locate. Very challenging to get all the carriers all on the same page at all the right sites at all the right times, but it's part of our longer term strategy as we start to deploy these sites to work those together and to encourage fewer poles and more co-location on those poles. But we're right on the front end, and we're just trying to figure out how to get some sites built right now, and that's where we want to take it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks
Mr.
for your
Jones,
time.
do you have a question? Okay. Mr. Pfeiffer, you may make your motion.
All righty. I move that Resolution 18-132, a resolution authorizing a wireless communication facilities master license agreement by and between the City of Arvada and Zayo Group LLC for the purpose of locating small cell facilities in the public rights of way be approved.
Motions for approval? All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Next, we have Resolution 18-133, which is a resolution amending the City of Arvada City Council rules and procedures governing meetings related to the designation of the start time for all public hearings. Mr. Daly.
Thank you, Mayor and members of council. Council will recall that recently there's been a couple of meetings where, due to handling a couple of initial items on the agenda, we reached a point in time in the hearing that wouldn't allow us to really open a public hearing until 6:30, and it may have been 10 after 6 or 6:15. So the purpose of this amendment, should council decide if you want to approve it, is to move the start time up for all public hearings starting January 1 to 6:15. So in those events in the future after January 1, where there's not much business initially, council won't have to wait till 6:30, but can actually start or initiate the public hearings at 6:15. And this was at the request of council.
Yeah, this would be the so that the mayor doesn't have to do a song and dance when we get done with everything. Tonight, of course, we're going to start a little bit later with our public hearings, but that's okay. Ms. Ford?
If there are no questions, I'll make a motion.
Mr. Jones, did you have? Okay. Ms. Ford, you may make your motion.
I move that R 18-133, a resolution amending the City of Arvada City Council rules of procedures governing meetings relating to the designation of the start time for all public hearings, be approved.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Council obviously doesn't like watching the mayor do song and dance. With that, we'll move on to first readings. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move that Council Bill 18-053, an ordinance authorizing an amended and restated intergovernmental agreement to establish the West Metro Drug Task Force.
That was actually 52.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Council Bill 18-053, an ordinance authorizing an additional appropriation for fiscal year 2018. And finally, Council Bill 18-054, an ordinance repealing and reenacting Chapter 6, Alcoholic Beverages. All be approved on first reading, ordered published in full, and public hearings set for December 17th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m.
Motions for approval on first reading, setting the date for the public hearing, which can now be conducted at, nope, this one would still be at 6:30. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Now we can open our public hearings. I'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 18-049, an ordinance amending and restating the City of Arvada Retirement Plan and Trust. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this is essentially really a cleanup ordinance. The City of Arvada Retirement Plan Trust document was last updated in January 2009, and since that time there have been some changes to the document, including updates and additions to definitions, allowing third-party advisor and other sorts of those kinds of things that have occurred. This is really updating the trust document, and same with the City of Arvada Retirement Plan document, which was last updated in 2014. And since that time, there have been different amendments that have been approved by both the Retirement Plan Board and the City Council. And again, we're just in the process of trying to restate and clean these documents up. Changes have been approved by the retirement plan boards and other staff that have been associated with the development of these documents, and we are recommending that you approve the ordinance in order to update these documents and have them made available in a cleaned up and restated fashion for the purposes of serving our employees that participate in the retirement plans.
Very good. Entertain any questions or motion. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move that Council Bill 18-049, an ordinance amending and
I apologize. I needed to open the public hearing and see if anybody wanted to give any testimony on this. Thank you, Mr. Daly, for catching that. Any member of the public like to address City Council on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public testimony portion. Now I'll open it up for your motion.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that Council Bill 18-049, an ordinance amending and restating the City of Arvada Retirement Plan and Trust, be approved on final reading, numbered 4666, and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we'll open the public hearing on Council Bill 18050, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of certain property along Alkire Street, generally from West 78th Avenue to West 75th Place, for the construction of street, sidewalk, utility, drainage, and/or related improvements as part of the improvements for Leiden Creek from Indiana Street to 72nd Avenue, UDFCD number 14-08.08A, Arvada project number 17DR02. Mr. Devon.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this ordinance is before you in order to help us complete a drainage project on Alkire, located generally at Alkire Street, where the Leiden Creek, that reach of Leiden Creek hits Alkire Street, generally between 78th, West 78th Avenue and West 75th Place. This is a improvement that was identified as something that needed to occur to better serve the community following the 2013 floods, and is being done in cooperation with urban drainage. The other thing I wanted to mention about this particular project is that as we were getting ready to put this project together, we had interaction with the community, the equestrian community, regarding an incident that occurred that was brought to the council's attention, I believe, in 2016, and then also further interaction with the community, the Van Arsdale Elementary School community, that was concerned about the lack of pedestrian improvements in that area. So since we were already working in the area to improve the drainage, we're acquiring some additional right-of-way and actually putting in pedestrian improvements on east side of Alkire Street, north of Van Arsdale Elementary School, to improve the access for pedestrians to the elementary school, and also for equestrians. As you know, that area, there's a lot of horse property in that area, so this will also improve the access for the equestrian community as well. So this right-of-way is important for that reason, as well as for the drainage improvements. I'm frankly very proud of the staff for coming up with creative ways to address these concerns, which were expressed to us. If council remembers, I think in August of 2016, we had some people here in this chambers making a case for their concerns about this. So this is our response, is by putting this project together as we have in order to respond to this matter. So we're certainly recommending approval of the ordinance, and be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Is there any member of the public that would like to address City Council on this matter? Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion, open it up for City Council questions or action. Mr. Jones.
I have a question, a comment, and I'd like to make the action.
Okay.
So I'll reserve that. So with this, will it also help with anything as we go north from 78th Place to 80th in facilitating safer sidewalks to the high school?
Absolutely. Yes,
Okay.
it will.
Okay. Thank you. That was my question. My comment is thank you to the staff for taking this on. Now I'll make a motion if there's no other questions.
You may.
Okay. I move that Council Bill 18-050, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition of certain property along Alkire Street, generally from West 78th Avenue to West 75th Place, for the construction of street, sidewalk, utility, drainage, and/or related improvements as part of the improvements for Leiden Creek from Indiana Street to 72nd Avenue, UDFCD number 14-08.08A, Arvada project number 17-DR-02, be approved on final reading numbered 4667 and ordered published by title only.
Motions for approval. All votes are cast. That passes 7-0. Let me echo the congratulations and thanks to staff. We've had issues along that stretch of Alkire for a number of years, between the Ralston Valley High School going in there and Van Arsdale. It's an area that has been of concern. We want safe streets and safe sidewalks to schools, and also for the equestrian population out there, and for the folks who bike or use that roadway to get down to the Apex Center. So it's certainly an important project, and we appreciate you taking it on. Okay, with that, I'll open it up for public comment. If there's anybody who'd like to address City Council at this time. Seeing none, I'll close that public. Oh, yes, yes. No problem.
My name is Andrew Garner. I reside at 8223 Sims Court in Arvada, a resident for over 20 years. I am the scoutmaster of these young men, which means that I try to keep them safe, trying to develop leaders, so I'm not the leader of this troop. The leader is not here tonight, but Xander is our assistant leader. Real quickly, I'd like to express my thanks for letting us be here tonight. But one of the requirements that these guys need to do is discuss the pros and cons of an issue. There doesn't seem to be a lot of pros and cons being discussed tonight. So I'm guessing that this last issue, the drainage improvements, might be their best opportunity to hear, taxpayer costs involved, schedule conflicts. Some of the public comment I know has been talked about for 2 years, I think I heard. 2016 was when this was brought up. So I'm just guessing that might be their only opportunity to see that kind of interaction tonight. And I would appreciate it if maybe Mr. Devon, this is the city manager, guys, if Mr. Devon might be able to speak to some of those issues, or the council, whoever's got the most experience.
Sure, Mr. Devon, or if you want to turn it over to one of your staff in terms of...
Well, I'll start, and staff can, if they see that I've left anything really important out, they can. But certainly, in terms of pro and con, I think probably one of the biggest things that one could argue would be the cost of the project. I think the drainage improvements. Do you know off the top? The drainage improvements will be into the millions of dollars once completed, and that's why there's a shared agreement between the city and urban drainage. One could argue that the impetus for this this project, which was the 2013 floods, is a once every 500-year event, and so perhaps it maybe is overreaction to addressing this problem. The con side would be it's overreaction unless your property happens to be the one that's affected by the damage as a result of the flood, and also the area in that particular part of our community is kind of semi-rural for those of you that travel that area, and on the east side of Alkire, I think the properties are actually in the county. Most of those properties are actually in unincorporated Jefferson County. So one could perhaps suggest that that area is kind of semi-rural and maybe doesn't require the kinds of improvements that we're looking at. On the other side of the coin, we have a pretty active elementary school, and there are Arvada neighborhoods that are served by that elementary school, and there are a number of Arvada children that that utilize that elementary school and actually walk to the school. That was one of the things we learned when we went out and did a site visit with some of the parent stakeholders and the principal, and they kind of showed us the routes that the children were taking to school, and certainly the pedestrian improvements, particularly on the west side of Alkire, would be extremely important for the children that utilize the school. And as Councilmember Jones mentioned, we don't consider this problem solved. There is from 78th Avenue up another 0.2 or so miles is Ralston Valley High School, and we don't have adequate pedestrian improvements at that point. There's a lot of students that drive to that high school. Sometimes they actually drive the speed limit, and other times they don't. So having a safer pedestrian access in that area, I think, would make a lot of people feel a lot better about the fact that you have a high school and not too far down the road an elementary school, that there are a lot of people that walk to that elementary school. So in the course of looking at this project, we looked at the impacts because of the flood, we looked at the pedestrian impacts and input from the community, and felt we needed to allocate the funds in order to make this work. We did not really receive any neighborhood opposition or community opposition to either of this, but certainly you could argue the cost perhaps maybe not being worth it. We would not argue that. We believe it is.
Yeah,
hope that helps.
And the actual fiscal impact of the action we took tonight for land acquisition, for actually acquiring land and easements on land, is $300,000. So that was the action we took tonight in terms of that. Mr. Fiver.
And I'd add that we had a lot of conflict between equestrian and pedestrian. We got to know the traffic conflicts that took place. And then also, isn't there a benefit to combine the projects? So if they stood alone, they would cost more, versus combining them, you're actually saving us dollars. We're having cost avoidance.
That's absolutely correct.
Good. Well, thanks for asking us to explain that a little bit further. We'll let you know when we have something real contentious. Yeah, I think Ms. Miller is going to be bringing up something about trash hauling next week, so I think we'll have some fun. Come back, you'll hear lots. Next, we have some reports from City Council, and we've got some motions. I'll ask upon Councilmember Bob Pfeiffer to do the first motion.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve Chief Link Straight to the Jefferson County Communication Center Authority, also known as JEFCOM, and Mark Devon as the alternate to that board.
Motion is to appoint the chief and our city manager to the Jefferson County Communications Center. For the students in the room, we have combined forces with the other municipalities, the fire districts, and the county in terms of having one central dispatch area for 911 calls, and this is the board that oversees that. That passes 7-0. Next, we have the ratification of the Arvada Economic Development Association AIDA board members. If someone would make that motion. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. I move that the nominations of Mr. Slinger, Mr. Markham, Mr. Imboden, and Ms. Witucky to the AIDA Board of Directors be approved and ratified.
Motions for approval of representatives to the Arvada Economic Development Association Board. This is a volunteer board that assists us with business attraction and, most importantly, retention. That passes 7-0. Next, Mr. Marriott, if you'll make a motion with regard to the Planning Commission.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I move to appoint Michael McCarron to the Arvada Planning Commission for an unexpired term ending April 30th, 2021.
Motions to appoint Mr. McCarron. We had interviews last week. We had, what was the total number? I keep thinking it was
41 applicants for one.
41 applicants for one position. Council agreed upon interviewing, which is our policy, the top 3. It was amazing, but kind of neat that council could agree upon 3 people for the interview process, and we were very impressed with all 3 applicants. And with that, we've agreed 7-0 to appoint Mr. McCarron, who's a local resident and owns Lakeside Insurance, to serve on the on the Planning Commission. Next, I'll open it up for questions or comments by council regarding any other matter. Mr. Marriott.
Thank you, Your Honor. So this holiday season has brought forth great business in my business here in the community, and each day I'm struck by what a vibrant, great economy we have and how lucky we are to have it. And I want to compliment and thank our citizens for shopping local. When you shop local, you make your community better. And that's clearly happening in my business, and I think many other businesses around. And for everyone, as you begin to do your holiday shopping, I just want to encourage you, if you can find it and buy it in Arvada, please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it would be appropriate tonight to acknowledge the passing of President Bush. We had earlier conversation with regard to the Bill of Rights and discussion about civility. And regardless of your political affiliation, something that can certainly be said about the first President Bush was that he was a true gentleman. It was in a time frame, I think, when there was better respect and a better dialogue. He led by a great example as a public servant in so many different arenas, be it as his roles with the CIA, with his other roles that he took on before the vice presidency, and then as president of the United States. And we need leaders like that and people who are willing to take on those roles. And so I think it's important tonight that we acknowledge the passing of President Bush. Mr. Devon?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Members of the council, next Monday night, we will have some interesting projects, subjects to talk about, affordable housing, waste hauling, and our annual comprehensive plan implementation update for 2018. So we look forward to presenting that information to council next Monday, and we look forward to the discussion and the interaction and the input from council that staff will receive at that workshop.
Great. Mr. Daly, thank you for the history lesson tonight. We stand adjourned.